What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is July 25th of 2018. Well, folks, today we have a lot of different exciting things to talk about here on the Daily Update. First, we're going to be taking a look, as always, at market valuations, as well as doing some technical analysis on market leaders. But outside of this as well, we're going to be focusing heavily on price action on today's update, because we're not only going to be taking a look at 3 different picks that I'm currently watching in regards to crypto markets, one of which I've already started to trade on, but along with that as well, we're going to be taking a deep look into both traditional and commodities markets. We're going to be taking a look at some of the large financial institutions and big tech companies, what their current prices are saying, as well as what gold, silver, and uranium prices are telling us. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the market of things, guys. So as we talked about in the last video, we've been seeing a lot of extensive bullish price action in Bitcoin. We've been seeing up and up and up price action over the past few weeks, and it's gotten people very eager that we might be not only seeing possibly a Bitcoin ETF around the corner, but that we could see a bull run coming over the next few weeks. Now, as Bitcoin has started to cool down here over the past 24 hours, we've finally gotten some love for altcoins. Finally, a decent amount of altcoins have outpaced Bitcoin here, which is leaving us with some room to question as to whether or not altcoins can actually start to keep up with Bitcoin. So we talked about in the last episode, it was the title of our video, can we see altcoins follow behind Bitcoin? We haven't seen a sweeping run-up. We've seen a decent amount of altcoins start to come up and outpace Bitcoin, but we're definitely going to have to see some more optimism over the next few days, as well as a Bitcoin correction, as we'll focus on when we take a look at the TA side of things. But with this move of extra capital into the altcoin space, starting to see some gains in this market, as well as Bitcoin holding the majority of its gains, we're still holding well around $300 billion. And market dominance, even though we have seen some players come to contest Bitcoin over the past few hours, we are still well on our way towards around 50%. We're currently at 47.3% in Bitcoin dominance. And again, I think you're going to see this in the grand scheme of things tap towards 50% in market dominance, and then from there we could really start to see altcoins rally. Now, as we're waiting for this though, it is important to note that at least here over the next few days, I think we could see a good bump up in altcoins. And the reason this is that we're going to have a slight consolidation period for Bitcoin. After we've had obviously the great run up over the past few days, much like we have here in the past, we can obviously see this is a period where Bitcoin either moves sideways or moves lower. On the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin's still looking fantastic. It still looks like it's got lots of room to move up. You guys know that at least my short-term price target is around $10,000, and we'll have to see if from that range towards August or September that we're going to get talks of a confirmation on a Bitcoin ETF. Again, September is when we're going to figure out a lot of this information. There was a recent announcement from the SEC that talked about how they're going to be discussing this, and we'll talk about this in a future video specifically, but they basically stated how they were going to postpone and continue reviewing through some of the ETF proposals. But going on here again, I think that over the next few weeks, going towards August and September, we could see Bitcoin test towards around $10,000. Looks well on its way. It held the triple bottom here, very healthy in regards to the longer term trend, and a nice few months of consolidation. So from there, we're looking for hopefully the daily chart to have a nice consolidation in the short term, possibly down to the line of resistance to make it new support. That would be extremely healthy. I know many people don't want to see Bitcoin drop down to around $76 to $7,800, but again, in the longer term stance of things, this might be really good to make this new support. So again, looking very healthy in this sense, but again, pretty expected with the 200-day rising downwards that this is going to act as a system of resistance, not to mention that we need to consolidate a little bit. We at least need to hold a decent amount of the price action that we've seen in order to move forward. Going on, let's take a look at a few of the market leaders, and then we'll dive into my top 3 picks that I'm currently watching in the market. Going on here to the second leader in the market, Ethereum to Bitcoin. My charts are loading a little bit slow here, I think, because of the hotel Wi-Fi. But generally speaking, what I'm looking for here with Ethereum, it looks like as if we're almost building a wedge here in the longer term of things. But I want to at least see that in the short term before I make any kind of trade on Ethereum, that this is going to hold around 5,500,000 Satoshis. If we can't get this, my next target is going to be a little bit more of a lower level, around 4 million Satoshis on the lower part of the wedge. Again, we've seen in the past, Ethereum was a buy around here at 3 million Satoshis. We're seeing resistance and support at some of these key even levels. We saw resistance back here around 8 million Satoshis, etc. So I'm thinking around here that we could see around 4 million Satoshis in the grand scheme of things if we can't hold this range. So I'm not getting too eager on alts right now, but again, I do have my ones that I'm going to look at here in just a few minutes. Going on here to take a look at Ripple. As you all know, XRP has a tendency throughout its history, we're actually going to get the right chart here on Bittrex, where we can see that it tends to go through these very parabolic short-term run-ups, and then a prolonged bear market here. As we can see, we've well broken down past the 200-day, much like we've seen in the past, but again, over the long term, rising with higher levels of support. So what I'm going to be looking for here with Ripple comparative to last time, where we generally got buying around the big even at 2,000 Satoshis, is that possibly we might be able to see Ripple make 4,000 Satoshis as a new level of support, as we saw back over here. So I'm going to check for this, see if we can get this. I'm not buying any Ripple until then. I think we need a good continued flush here. We're obviously picking up to the sell side here. Wait until we get a nice bounce off the lows, and from there we can possibly see if there's any good trades for the short term. But again, not really long term on Ripple, just more of a short term trade. Going on to take a look at Bitcoin Cash here. Bitcoin Cash finally got down to around 10 million Satoshis, so 1/10 of a Bitcoin. I think that we're going to see this come back down to the lows, much like we've talked about in the past, around 9 million Satoshis. Excuse me, I might have said 1 million back there. It was 10 million Satoshis, but in this case, I think we could easily see Bitcoin Cash come back down to these levels. We'll have to see if it can hold. Again, we've seen lower levels before. I don't want to toy with this until we have guaranteed support at that level, especially in this market where Bitcoin is leading. Going on here to take a look at a few more. Let's go ahead and take a look at Litecoin. Now, Litecoin is getting interesting because, as you all know, we were talking a lot about this extensively. Probably you might know that about a month or two ago, we were talking very extensively about Litecoin, especially back in April when it was testing this level at 16 million Satoshis, between 16 million and 8, excuse me, I'm getting my numbers messed up, between 1,600,000 Satoshis and 1,800,000 Satoshis. We talked about this. We talked about how it'd be very risky at these levels because we're on the higher end of things. I mean, it doesn't take a genius, guys. If we're trying to buy low and sell high, we do not usually want to buy up in this price range unless we have a reason to believe that technically or fundamentally that there's momentum to go higher. And it wasn't able to hold that level as we were betting on in that sense. So now Litecoin is getting back into a range where we can start feeling a little bit more comfortable. I'm not exactly buying just yet. We've seen that 1 million Satoshis has acted as support. Let's see if it holds there over the next few days and if we get a nice bounce. Again, we could very well see this come back down towards around 6 million to, 600,000 to 800,000 Satoshis. That would be my next target if we don't hold this. If we break through 1 million Satoshis, I'm going to wait patiently on it. But if we can get some nice support on there, I'll let you guys know how I'm feeling in the next episode. We might be able to get a little bit of a short-term bounce towards 1,200,000 to 1,400,000 Satoshis. So going to be taking a look on that, seeing as the RSI is registering this is oversold. That was the key indicator to me that we might be able to hold here, at least in the short term, and get a nice bounce. But I think for the longer term trade, we probably got a little bit of ways to go for this. Going on here, let's take a look at a few of the large protocols. Cardano has been drawing a lot of attention. Not only has BitMEX listed it, I think a few weeks back or a month or so, 2 ago, they listed it back on BitMEX. There's been a lot of excitement around Cardano. It was one of the best altcoins during this period of Bitcoin gaining in the market. It was actually able to hold against Bitcoin quite well and is still holding around 2,000 sats. This has been a level that we not only saw back here in March and April, but has been something a level that I've been relatively interested in because we generally saw Cardano top around 8,000 Satoshis, a nice 1/4 discount in regards to valuation comparative to Bitcoin. So I'm going to keep on looking out to see if we can hold here, and if we get a close above, say, 3,000 Satoshis, I think that's where we can start to see this move up in the longer term trend of things. Not to mention, you got the 200-day coming down here. Breaks through that means that you're getting through the longer term resistance here. The 200-day can not only act as longer term support, but it also acts as long-term resistance. That'll be the real test if we can get above that. In the short term, you might see a nice bounce on this if you're really trying to trade in the short term. You might be able to see it break a little bit higher from this level, maybe retest back towards 2,500 sats. But I'd wait to see if you can continue to hold here for another week or so. All right, so going on here, we will definitely take a look at some of the other market leaders, guys, but we're going to be crunching a lot of numbers today, and I don't want to overwhelm you. So I want to show you guys the 3 plays that I'm currently watching in the market. They're definitely from a different range of valuations here. We've got definitely some small cap plays and some large cap plays, but for the moment, I think these are some of the best plays in the market. So I want to talk about one that I sent an alert out about on my Telegram group, and if you guys haven't joined into that, definitely join it. It's completely free. Should be down in the description if you guys want to take a look. But the first one we're going to be taking a look is QKC, or Cork Chain. So this one has turned out pretty good so far. I just did it today. It's been going quite well, but it's definitely nowhere near my price targets. So there's definitely plenty of time in the sense of price range of what I'm looking for. So going on here, we can see with Cork Chain that I saw an ascending triangle here, and this is obviously a nice reversal pattern after a pretty dramatic sell-off. And as we can see here, whether you're taking a look at the hourly or the daily, my Wi-Fi is definitely killing it at the moment. But generally speaking, Cork Chain has gone all the way from around, I think, around 3,000 sats when it launched back in June down to around 800 sats. And if you look at its USD valuation, it's actually getting relatively close. It's still well above, but it's definitely getting a little bit closer to the ICO value. And for this, it's gotten me a little bit eager to where I think we could start to see Cork Chain do quite well. Not only is it listed on Binance, providing a nice amount of liquidity for it, but I think the project at these levels is definitely looking to be interesting. So what I had here is I bought my first entry around 840 sats, and then from there I also set a general stop where I'm going to be selling out my position if it goes down to 820 sats. But from here, for the most part, it's looking quite nice. And I think we're going to get a nice continuation, a little bit of resistance at the 200 hour, but outside of that, I think we can continue. And I've provided a good amount of time. I'm going to give this all the way until August 31st. Most likely, if I can continue to see this holding the trend and we don't get stopped out. And also along with that, I think here are my two levels that I'm generally looking for this to top out around, anywhere from around 1,400 sats to 1,600 sats. This is the target range. And again, we've seen this have nice momentous strides before. I'll go ahead and show you on the daily here that we've seen this do well over 100% in a short period of time. We've seen over here, for example, well, not exactly 100%. We've seen two times in the past where it's gotten close to 100%, where we've seen Cork Chain bounce off the lows towards higher levels, bounce off the lows towards higher levels. And I think, again, the lower you're going here, especially in an environment where Bitcoin is corrected as well, I think we could very well see Cork Chain easily get back up into this range and retest that level, much like it did over here, how we were testing up the open on the Binance exchange. So I think we could see around 1,400 to 1,600 sats. My buy and sell levels are kind of varying, but definitely my closing position, my final close is going to be somewhere around here, around 1,400 to 1,600 sats. Okay. So going on, that's the one I've entered into right now. I've already done my Cork Chain trade, and I'm entered in at the moment. The RSI is reading quite low here. It's been relatively oversold. But going on, I want to talk about a few other players. Let's go ahead and take a look at NIM. Now, NIM has been something that I've been watching patiently for a while because this one is very clear as to how it historically plays out. And it's good that we're on an exchange like Poloniex because we can see the a good amount of price action here for its historical price action. And obviously we can see here, compared to Bitcoin, NIM is very easy to read. You can see that it generally tops out around anywhere from around 11,000 to 14,000 sats. This is generally the top out range where things get parabolic, and we're only in this frame for a short period of time. And along with this as well, we're down towards this range over here, around 2,000 sats, where we have held support in the past, and where beforehand we were able to build up nice steady price action before we went parabolic. Now, I don't know why my sell levels aren't showing. I might be on the wrong exchange here. I'll go ahead and load it on Bittrex, and maybe we'll get lucky on this one. There we go. This is what I'm looking for here. So going here to NIM, I want to talk about how I'm going to trade this one. Again, this is a standard 50, 25, 25 trade that I usually do, where I double my position in comparative to Bitcoin. I take 50% of the position, and then I let the rest run. And the rest of the cycle, it would go towards 25% here at 8,000 sats. That'd be a 4 times over Bitcoin gain, and then also another 25% being sold at 10,000 sats, which would be a 5 times gain comparative to the original entry. My entry here is around 2,000 sats. Now you'll notice I don't have a stop here, and I'm going to tell you guys why I don't have a stop, because historically we've also seen when NIM tests this level that we had a 2-day flash sale going all the way to 1,300 sats. Now there's a little bit of risk if you could have something like that happening again. I'm not going to enter so aggressively at 2,000, and I'm going to wait and see if we can get a bounce off of 2,000. Definitely nothing as large as this. If I start to see momentum picking up, I definitely would probably enter, but I'm not going to set a stop on this one. I'm going to be very cautious about entering into this, wait to see if it can hold this level steadily for the next few days, and possibly start to build an uptrend off of 2,000. I want to see a nice healthy return back to the mean, or at least to higher levels from this level 2,000. That's generally what I'm looking for. Haven't entered into it yet, but definitely keeping an eye on them at these levels. And again, a great range for one of the large caps of potential return to risk in this case. Again, you usually don't find the larger caps at this kind of a discount, as well as in such an easy form of price action to read. And if we take a look at the USD valuation as well, which we'll load up here, again, not asking for much here. NEM is relatively cheap and back down towards its previous levels back in November, around 20 cents rather than $2.20. So much more reasonable, I think, in this sense. But again, you got to do your own analysis and see if you see what I see as well. Going on here, I want to take a look at Komodo. Komodo, again, working towards decentralized exchanges and atomic swaps, has been another interesting fundamental project, but at the same time is showing some really nice technical patterns. We can see obviously that this has held support around 20,000 satoshis 2 times in the past, and I think that's what we're getting here right now. So I haven't entered into this one again. I'm looking to get an entry in this so long as it holds around 2,000 sats over the next 2 or 3 days. I've also got to stop around 15 to 16,000 sats, and then also along with that I have my sell levels. I'm going to do a 50% takeout at around a doubling in the Satoshi measurement, and then also continuing another 25% at 60,000 sats and another 25% at 80,000 sats. So pretty simple trade here. Again, we can see that these historic levels tend to be areas where we want to generally look towards taking some profits, especially up here towards the upper band. This is the more high risk area. I'm not going to be writing out the whole trade up to these levels, but I think in the short term we can definitely see, again, a nice bounce off these levels around 2,000. We tend to see it every time that it holds around here. Look at the kind of run-up that we get. We get very nice, good short-term run-ups. Question is, will we be able to have that kind of momentum in this market? I don't know. I don't know if altcoins are there just yet. But these are looking very healthy, these levels. It's oversold in the RSI, and it's at a price level that continuously, not only tends to be a buy point around the RSI, but along with that as well, just generally looks good at these levels. You want to buy low and you want to sell high, guys, when you're trying to trade against Bitcoin. That's the general objective with altcoins. Alrighty, so we've taken a look at not only some of the market leaders, but my 3 picks that I'm currently watching or actively trading at the moment. Again, you guys got to do your own research, look into it, see if you see what I see on the technical side. I keep things relatively simple. I play the cycles, but I want to spend some time to talk about traditional markets here. So I've got Deutsche Bank here on the weekly. There was a recent report on Zero Hedge that one of their most profitable sectors, the fixed income market, which is basically long-term debt investments, have actually reported the worst week of earnings, or excuse me, the worst quarter of earnings that we've seen since back during the financial recession for Q2. So this is definitely interesting stuff to notice in that sense. Sorry, my phone alarm's going off. But generally speaking, I want to talk a little bit more about the general indexes in this case, and talk a little bit about not only the NASDAQ, but also talk about generally specifically the technology sector, to talk about some of the FANG stocks, to talk about the some of the financial indexes for banks, but also talk about commodities as well. So jumping into here, let's take a look at stocks here on the daily. The NASDAQ made an all-time high, but sold off most of its gains yesterday. Here's the general play of what I see for the FANG stocks at the moment. I think the FANGs have obviously signaled that they're quite overextended. The stock buybacks have been ridiculous across the board, but I think what we're going to get is a double top in the market. There's nothing more confirming of fear settling in the market than a double top. And if we take a look here at a few of the large players, actually I want to take a look first at Apple here, we'll start to see how we could potentially be seeing a double top in the market. I think what you're going to see here is Apple possibly move a little bit higher. I think we're going to see, this is going to be really incredible to see because I think it's the first time we've seen it on the active market, but I think Apple's going to go towards $1 trillion valuation. This is something, if you take a look at it right now, I think it's around $940 or $950 billion. So just a little bit more price action, probably around $200 a share, is going to let us get around towards that price range and let us hit the big level of $1 trillion. Not to mention, there's another big tech giant on the way as well, Amazon, which is going very close towards that. So I think either in the short term you're going to see a double top at these prices and we might not hit the big even figures, or we might have one last mania phase where we're actually able to break towards the highs and have a nice parabolic finish in markets where FANG stocks start to drastically sell off. And I think the one you're starting to see that in is obviously the N out of FANG, which is Netflix. Netflix had a massive sell-off the other day after earnings, got some buyers coming in, but has sold off most of their gains. Here, I think most people would probably be saying that this is going to start retracing. I don't think just yet. As you're going to have the daily keep coming up here, the fact that we haven't stepped below these levels does signal some short-term optimism. And you know what I think is going to happen? I think you're going to get a buy-side action coming back up to these highs, and you're going to get a double top there. That's what I'm generally looking for. And again, talking about all these overextended tech stocks, Google has made an all-time high just the other day, but again, selling off a decent amount of the gains, still well gapped above the closing price of the previous trading day. So we'll have to see how markets open up. Again, Google, much like most tech stocks, signaling very, very overbought at these levels. Again, I would not be dabbling in the tech stocks at the moment. But going on here to talk more about the financials, I want to spend a decent amount of time to take a look at XLF. Again, we're still seeing what I think, I want to take it here to the weekly so we can get the more longer term picture. What I think we're going to see here is, generally speaking, a slight rebound in financials, but definitely not up to the top, possibly a double top if anything, where we're going to start to see the turnover in the markets. Again, take a look back at what we historically saw here. Before we start the turnover, we saw a double top in prices. So I don't think you're going to be making new highs. That's what I meant. Sorry, I meant to say that actually earlier. I think we're going to see possibly a retest towards $30 here in XLF. But I think what you're going to see is a double top there and a correction downwards where we could start to collapse at least back down to the 200 week here. But I think that we could see this go much lower because I think we're going to obviously sometime in the next few months experience a recession of some sort. You're even hearing some of the commercial banks and some of the larger investors finally start to admit that, we're in the later inning of this game. So again, with fixed income markets, with a lot of the ETF and pension markets kind of slowing down a little bit, I think in this case we could very well see markets start to turn downwards as well. So next up, I want to spend some time here to focus on commodities and specifically gold and silver, because we've been talking a lot about commodities here on the channel, and we've been talking about, as many of you might have seen, the graph where it compares the S&P 500 to commodities, and we can see that obviously commodities are drastically oversold. They haven't been this cheap comparative to equities in over 50 years. But I want to spend some time to talk a little bit about gold and silver specifically, and then we'll dive into uranium as well, the third commodity I like to trade and watch. But gold and silver had some really negative price action over the past week that broke very important technical patterns that they'd been building up for over more than 2 years. So I want to spend some time here focusing on gold first. We can obviously see here on the monthly that gold, and actually more specifically over the past few trading days, has broken below the ascending triangle. That is a bullish pattern that has been broken, so we never actually got the breakout. In this case, I think what we're going to see is really there's not too many levels of support here. I think generally speaking, you're going to see gold come back down towards around $100, or at least GLD in this case, down to this previous level we've seen here in the past. And as well as that, I think silver is the same case as well. If we take a look at SLV here, we can see that silver has broken out of this wedge. It really needed to break up to the upside, but at the moment I think we're going to see this come back down to $13. Again, we've seen silver hold this level back here, and we've seen it historically much lower as well. So I think you're going to hope in commodities markets to see a double bottom. Again, I really cannot see commodities going lower than that, guys. The reason being is that commodities are drastically cheaper comparative to equities. Unless we get a sharp correction in equities, that would at least balance things out. And that wouldn't have to mean that commodities go up. It would just mean that commodities at least hold some of their value or move down at a slower pace than equities in that case. But again, I think this is going to provide a very, very nice opportunity for two of the major precious metal plays, especially as we're stepping towards a period where, as I was talking about earlier, where some of the larger financial institutions and bankers are starting to see that we might be heading towards a recession in this sense, especially a lot of the market analysts as well. But going on here, I want to talk about the third commodity, wrap this up towards looking at uranium here. Uranium has also been building a long-term trend, looking to take an upward swing here over the next few months. I think, again, going into 2020, we are going to see a very good sweeping run-up in commodities, especially the oversold ones, and uranium is no exception. If we take a look here at the weekly, we can see that this has been building up a wedge here. In fact, actually, very nice pattern here where it's been holding very clear resistance and support where we might be able to have a breakout. This commodity has not broken through yet. I don't think that you're going to be seeing this go down like gold or silver. Uranium is a relatively small market comparative to the two commodities that we previously looked at, but I think this one has a lot of potential in the sense of longer term output. Again, I think we could easily break through at the top of this wedge here and test towards, obviously we've already broken through, I think, the 200-day moving average, if I'm correct, or we've been testing around it for quite some time. But in this case, okay, sorry, we're down below it at the moment. Generally speaking, though, we've had the 200-day, which has been serving as a lead on momentum towards flattening here and actually turning upwards. And usually when we find uranium below the 200-day moving average for the past 2 years, this has usually been an area where we can get bullish on uranium as it's continued to hold support around $12 here on the URA ETF. So again, URA is a good exposure of a lot of the uranium stocks and the given markets out there for commodities. And I think that if we can get this breaking out above here, we can really start to see some momentum and volume pick up going towards higher levels, testing towards $20 or $30 on the ETF. And this one has been drastically oversold. Uranium markets have been extremely bearish for the past few years, but I think we're going to see a massive commodity shift over the next coming months and going into 2020 again. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about commodities markets? What do you all think about the financial and tech sector? And what do you think about not only cryptocurrency markets, but the 3 picks that we looked at earlier? I'd like to hear down in the comments down below and get a discussion going. I'm about to do my conference speech here in the next few days. After that, it's heading home back to the States, guys, where we've got lots of content planned. Thank you all so much for the patience and the love that you guys have been showing. Until the next video, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.